Hey everybody, my name is Trish from Green is the New Lean. So I like to take recipes that I already love but alkaline it. And this recipe is coming from one of my favorite manuals of all times, the Nutribullet Classic. And if you don't own this book, don't worry, you can buy the expanded version in places like Amazon and eBay, and I'll leave the links in the bottom. So today's dish that I'm going to change is nut loaf. Now it's relatively healthy the way it is, but we need to alkaline it by doing what I call electric swap outs. So see how I make this dish alkaline? So let's just get into it. Before we start, make sure you are preheating your oven at 375 degrees Fahrenheit. And let's get into how to make this. All right, we are going to do our first electric swap with the oil. The book suggests 1 tablespoon of olive oil or coconut oil. That is not good for cooking. So we're going to use grapeseed oil, or you could also use avocado oil. To that oil, I'm going to put 1 cup of white onions, and I'm going to let that cook for a few minutes. After you let that cook, you're also going to add 1 cup of red peppers. The recipe calls for 1 stalk of celery, but we don't eat celery in Dr. Sebi's nutritional guide. So I'm going to use fennel stalk instead. I'm also going to use 1/2 cup of some of the body from the fennel and 1 cup of mushrooms. These are baby bellas. And you're going to cook this for another 2 minutes. The recipe calls for 1 clove of garlic, but instead we're going to do an electric swap out, and we're going to put equal parts of fresh ginger and equal parts of a shallot. Now I actually put the ginger in my Nutribullet to get it smaller, like shred it down. And I put 1 tablespoon of fresh garlic and 1 tablespoon of shallots. And you're going to also do an electric swap out on the carrot. Instead of 1 carrot, I'm replacing this with 1/4 cup of chopped butternut squash, and I just use a shredder. You could use a food processor, but since it's a Nutribullet video, we'll stick to just shredding it by hand. Butternut squash is a great replacement for carrots, and we are going to saute this for at least 1 more minute. Okay, we're going to turn the heat off, and now add 2 tablespoons of spelt flour. You want to use spelt flour or any of the other Dr. Sebi approved flours. Just going to put this in this mixture and stir it. And we're just going to let this sit while we do the rest of our ingredients. Full disclosure, the second time I made this dish, I did it in a food processor, but I'm going to try to use my Nutribullet combo because there's a pulse feature in here. I'm going to take about 8 ounces of soaked walnuts. I soaked these for at least overnight, and I'm going to put this in the Nutribullet, and I'm going to pulse it and see if it kind of works like my food processor. Wish me luck. Oh great, this is working. Yes. You're going to add 2/3 cup of homemade vegetable stock. Mine, of course, is alkaline, and I will have a separate post on how I make my alkaline stock. You're also going to add 2 slices of homemade alkaline breadcrumbs. The breadcrumbs I made using my Nutribullet with the smaller cups. You can do homemade bread, but you want to use a bread that has no yeast and no ingredients that's gonna not be good for your system. Next, you're gonna add 1 teaspoon of sea salt, 1 teaspoon of thyme, 1 teaspoon of oregano, and 1/2 teaspoon of cayenne pepper. But if that's too spicy, put none or little or whatever you want. And you're gonna mix this all together. It's not actually mixing well, so what I'm gonna do is just pulse it. As you can see, it's not exactly like a food processor. A food processor would be better for this process, but it's doing a good enough job. But like I said, if you have a food processor, this would be a lot better. I just wanted to see if you could do it in a blender. I'm also gonna put the vegetables, just pulse it just a little bit. So I'm just gonna push this in the blender and pulse it, and then combine everything together in the bowl. Some of it's pureed and some of it's like chunky. So just stir this around a little bit more, and then we're gonna pulse it one more time. It's like a mix of chunks and pureed. I'm just going to add this to the nut mixture with all the seasonings and just mix it all together. I am now placing the mixture into a cast iron loaf pan. This was greased with grapeseed oil, but you could also use avocado oil. I'm going to place this into the oven for 35 minutes of a preheated stove at 375 degrees. All right, here's the moment of truth. All right, so I'm going to test this real quick. The texture is too soft for my liking. This always tastes better the next day, so I would suggest you making this the day before if you want more of a meatloaf type texture. But let's taste it. There's chunks of walnuts in here. That's killing it. If you have a food processor or you're willing to chop up the walnuts, it'll pay off, because when I did this in the food processor, it was way better, but it's still good. Also, I'm not gonna lie, I love ketchup on my meatloaf. This brand, Organicville, it's not exactly Dr. Sebi approved, but it's made with agave. Not a lot of crazy ingredients in here, but know if you use it, it's not alkaline, it's more like alkaline-ish. But let's try it with the ketchup. I love ketchup. Yes, I do. It's better with the ketchup. There is an alkaline ketchup that I did like from Bobo Cooks. I recently made the homemade ketchup. It was really good. It takes about 40-50 minutes, but if you want a real alkaline experience, you're gonna wanna go with his. My bad for not putting in a food processor. Count how many times I use the word food processor. But I do like this a lot. Like, I literally crave this. So yeah, just chop it better. It'll have more of a meat taste. And that's it for now. If you wanna see my other post that I did, I think it was a butternut apple soup. I alkaline that, and I also will have a link for the alkaline vegetable stock. And of course, don't forget to sub, like, and share, because sharing means caring. And until my next post, Gadget Trish is out. Think vegan. Bye.